So this is what we know. Russia was in control of the portion of the dam that was destroyed. It was also in control of all operations for the dam based on where the dam operations center sat in Russian-controlled territory. There's been no camera footage of an explosion, no reports of explosions, meaning those cameras either were not on, they were not maintained, or it was just too dark to see anything when this took place. And even if there was footage, Russia would maintain that footage and would only release it if it implicated Ukraine. The Russian-backed mayor of Novokakhovka was unaware of the dam breach until about 15 minutes after it was breached, and he saw the footage in real time like we did. The International Atomic Energy Agency has said there's no immediate nuclear safety risk. So this brings up the question of who blew up the dam, or what happened to the dam, or who is responsible. So there's three scenarios with two possible culprits. Obviously, the two culprits are Russia and Ukraine. The three scenarios are Ukraine destroyed it, Russia destroyed it, or the dam failed due to neglect or negligence. Now, the first and least likely option, in my opinion, is that Ukraine blew it up. Why would Ukraine do this is the first question. So from a standpoint of why Ukraine would blow up the dam, it could choke Crimea, which is in Russians' hands, as well as Russian-occupied territories of water and energy. It could flood Russian defended areas on the east bank of the river, and it can create a scenario that blames Russia for the dam breach, which causes an international outcry against Russia for creating an ecological disaster that affects hundreds of thousands, and therefore provides more support to Ukraine. So why wouldn't Ukraine do this, or why couldn't they do it? Well, flooding their own population and creating a decade-long ecological disaster to gain a minimum tactical advantage is quite preposterous, in my opinion. It makes crossing the river downriver from the dam impossible, something that Ukraine was doing to set conditions for the counteroffensive. Their bridging assets now won't be able to deploy in a chaotic flood zone, and also are not able to conduct boat incursions when the water is so unpredictable. Ukraine has less of a chance of successfully conducting an attack on the dam due to the proximity of the destroyed section to Russian-held territory. As you can see here, this is Russian-held portions of the dam. So Ukraine would have to cross into Russian territory, lay the explosives, and then have it blow up. Evacuations took place after the fact, and the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, has called emergency sessions of his Security Council, as well as their versions of the Department of State, etc., to address this, and they seem genuinely caught off guard. Now, why would Russia do this? Is the first question for Russia. I'll go into why they couldn't do it or wouldn't do it. So why would Russia do this? Well, they want to stop Ukraine's counteroffensive from crossing the river. And Russia seems to be the weakest at this river and was relying on the river itself as a defensive barrier. However, Ukraine has shown the ability, like I said, to cross the river in small probing attacks, so the Russians needed to create more standoff, more of a defense, and better way to do that than just widening the river through this dam breach. It creates chaos on the battlefield for Ukraine. So they are forced to pause their counteroffensive to deal with evacuations on their side, to deal with the ecological disaster here, and continue to push their potential counteroffensive back so that they can handle the disaster that this caused. Russia can blame Ukraine and create a scenario for, again, on the opposite side of the thing, international outcry against Ukraine for causing such an ecological disaster that affects hundreds of thousands, and potentially remove support from Ukraine. It also chokes a significant portion of Ukraine off from power generated by the dam. This is something that Russia has been known to do for a while now, is try to attack energy infrastructure against Ukraine to turn off their power. Russia has a history of not caring about the plight of civilians and the infrastructure. I mean, just look at Mariupol, look at Bucha, look at some of these other cities where they've just laid waste to them. So why are we to think that they would care what happens to the cities downriver from this? Now, the dam breached on the Russian-controlled eastern side of the river, and it would likely require an internal explosion. Discussion amongst military engineers point to the dam being able to withstand enormous forces. So a missile attack would have to be extremely precise with a significant number of missiles, and there's no evidence of missile attacks. Again, there's no reports of explosions or anything taking place. 155 millimeter artillery attack would likely not cause this. They just aren't powerful enough. I mean, the devastation is pretty significant. Also, you could potentially do a risky bombing run, but again, no explosions reported. Nothing seems to have taken place with regard to military operations here. So it was, if there was explosions, they had to have been internally blown, meaning those explosions would have been muffled. And the only ones that could have executed an internal explosion based on the proximity to territory is Russia. And Russia itself, Medvedev, and the media have said that if there is a threat of Crimea being taken, this dam is in play, destroying the dam. And so they may have preemptively done this if they truly thought that Ukrainian counteroffensive was going to be successful. But in terms of capability, in terms of willingness to do this, I would lean towards Russia being able to do this more so than Ukraine, as well as willing to do it. But why wouldn't Russia do it? Let's focus on that. Well, it floods their defensive positions downriver. But when you look at the OSINT, or the open source intelligence, it shows that these positions were largely vacated weeks ago to redeploy troops to positions in Donetsk Oblast, where a lot of their offensive operations were going on. And like Ukraine, you would like to believe that if Russia truly feels this region is a part of Russia, that flooding their own population and creating a decade-long ecological disaster to gain minimal tactical advantage over Ukrainian counteroffensive is something Russia wouldn't do. So those are the reasons for each country. Now, the reason that it potentially could have been something that was just a catastrophic failure, that neither side did it on purpose, and the dam failed due to negligence and neglect. However, even in this case, it would be Russia's fault because they are the ones that maintain control of the dam operations, and also they have done some destructive things against this dam. The reason I think it could potentially be this is because neither side gains any tactical advantage. In fact, it creates way more chaos, way more problems for both sides having this dam go down. So probably it was more of a catastrophic failure. The Russian-backed Novokakhovka mayor seemed genuinely caught off guard. He claimed the news that the dam had not been breached and everyone needs to remain calm, when clearly there was open source intelligence sources that showed it had been breached. And either he was faking it or he truly was ignorant to the fact that the dam had been breached. He didn't realize anything until about 15 minutes later. Novokakhovka, both the dam and the town, are ran by Russians and Russian proxies, with the original managers of the dam fleeing, so that Russia is now left to manage it on its own. There are now hundreds of photos and videos showing the damage, and there doesn't seem to be any damage. You can see here any blast damage per se, but it could be underwater. So you're looking at an aerial of the dam that starts on May 28th and goes through June 2nd. Keep an eye on a couple of areas. These gates right here, you can see, are open. There's four gates that are open. These are sluice gates that allow the water through. These are not open. This area right here is where Russia destroyed the roadway crossing the dam. Russia controls everything from this point downward. So this is not an open sluice gate. This is what's happening, is overtopping the dam, meaning the water was so high that it was overtopping the dam. Here you have the sluice gates open, but they're being overwhelmed, and actually water is overtopping all of the sluice gates across the top. And watch what happens. Again, pay attention to right here. So you see 31st, the 1st, right here, you see the water is so powerful coming through and the pressure is so high that it causes the dam to have a portion of it fail right there. And this was days ago. So again, you can see water overtopping the dam on the sluice gates, and the open sluice gates are being overwhelmed. You can see the gantry cranes haven't moved since November 22nd, and the destroyed missing deck portion from when the Russians hit the roadway to keep Ukraine from crossing. And when I talk about mismanagement, this is what I mean. So this was the water level at Lake Kakhovka right behind the dam. So in February, it dropped to record lows, huge lows. And then immediately following the runoff, it went to record highs right behind the dam. So the pressure is wildly changing, and the Russians were not managing the dam. So based on everything we've seen overnight and this morning, I'm leaning towards this catastrophic failure, in which blame would be firmly placed on Russia because they started this war and they blew the roadway in November. They were mismanaging the dam, causing the sluices that were open to damage the dam with just the massive amount of pressure and friction being caused.